So this question, I'm going to go through the kind of sample questions that you can see on this sheet here. It's one that we went through in class potentially, and there are some images associated with it. So I'm just going to put those images up now. You can see here 5 images of the impacts of Hurricane Sandy. We've done a walkthrough of how to talk about the path of Hurricane Sandy and what makes it a kind of a unique hurricane. But we can bring in some of that information into this answer in terms of the conditions associated with the problems. However, we're mostly going to be focusing on those problems. We're mostly going to be focusing on how those conditions have effects on people. So study the pictures of Hurricane Sandy and explain the effects it had using the pictures and your own knowledge. Very key, that and there. You must use the because and so what technique in order to develop your knowledge and explain things, and I'm going to show you how you do that within a peel paragraph. So without further ado, let's go to our visualizer here, and I've bugged the question already, a reminder of the bug strategy here, which is really useful when you are answering your question and you're in your exam, because at the end of the day you're not going to have the time to do a massive plan like this in your assessment. So the bug strategy, as if you were in your assessment box: study and explain. Study suggests that we do need to do analysis of those pictures that we had, and we're going to be focusing on one particular picture today. And then explain the idea and develop it. That's using the so what technique. So because and so what. That's what that word explain is asking us to use. I've underlined a few terms. It's pictures, Hurricane Sandy, underlined pictures again to remind us that we can use them. I've highlighted knowledge with my underlining, and those are the key terms that are going to be quite important for us today. So a strategy that I mentioned in the lesson for this question was the hide strategy. And hide is going to stand for highlight, identify, develop, and embed into your answer. So we're going to have a look at that. That's what it stands for. 4 separate sections, 4 separate things that we can do while we are looking at our creating ourselves a model answer for this question. Back to this sheet here, we did develop an idea, which was that, well, we had 3 of them actually, and we focused in on this idea of flights being cancelled. The other 2 ideas you can have a look at when you're practicing the other 2 paragraphs for this question. From that, we thought, well, what other key terms can we identify that are associated with the flights being cancelled? So some of the terms that we identified were heavy rain, cumulonimbus clouds, and then when we thought about those things, we said, well, how do they link to and rain bands? How do they link to flights being cancelled? Right. So, and there's an increased chance of crashes, for example, and that increased chance of crashes means that there's going to be people such as scientists, people such as these companies, these international companies that run the flights, running a risk analysis, and that is going to lead eventually to those 12,000 flights being cancelled. Now that is enough information in there from those ideas that we've identified and then developed on to put into our answer for that last part of the section here, that E of the hide strategy. Okay, so I'm just going to take a look at that here now. And in terms of our point, we've already made it. We've said, due to Hurricane Sandy, and you can give a little bit of information here. So you can say a tropical depression, tropical storm that turned into a hurricane. And you could say flights were cancelled. Now that is our point, I'm not going to say that point is going to lead us to getting one specific mark, because we've actually done a couple of things in there. We've linked in our knowledge, okay, so that what we called that earlier on, our AO1 skill. And then it's also telling us the effect, and that's our AO2 skill, our explanation. So this is our knowledge, and this is our explanation. So we've already done those two things, and before, when we were looking at this question in class, I told you that there was 3 levels to this answer because it's worth 8 marks. So the 3 levels in GCSEs, typically you'd be looking at 6 to 8 marks if you got a level 3, which is the best possible answer that you can do. That would be the best possible answer you can do. 3 to 5 marks would be a level 2, so you're probably lacking on some of these final points of development. And then 1 to 2 marks, you'd probably be getting 2 marks just for that 1 point if you developed it slightly further, depending on the marking scheme. Now, evidence. Well, we've given a little bit of information about the tropical storm. It turned into a hurricane. Well, what made it turn into a hurricane that's going to have an effect on those flights? Hurricane Sandy had maximum wind speeds of 100 miles per hour, and we could also say that we could bring in some information about the amount of rain there was as well, and the, the strength of the wind combined with the amount of rain, that would lead to a good deal of evidence being provided for us that we can then develop on. So this is useful, but we need to make sure that we show how we're going to explain this a little bit further. So, meaning that there would be issues, there would be risks due to the strong winds. So evidence, but we are providing a little bit of our AO2 again here, and we've also got knowledge about the maximum wind speeds, and that knowledge is again AO1 skills. So when the marking scheme is looked at, while an examiner is marking a question like this, they're going to say, are they providing a good amount of these 2 skills? I can sit them in this little category here. Have they explained and linked back to the question later on? Maybe I can even put them into this section here. So we want to see that that is thorough and well developed. Okay, enough about that. So explain this then. As a result, we'll say scientists and flight companies carry out a risk analysis, or carried out a risk analysis, and cancelling over 12,000 flights. Now, more evidence, so evidence doesn't specifically have to be before explanation all the time. So 12,000 flights cancelled. Well, what does that mean for people? Let's develop that further. People were stranded in foreign countries, foreign places, for example. Or you could also say that business meetings or family trips were affected. Were cancelled or postponed. You could say postponed there. Postponed meaning that they would eventually happen. Again, we've got our AO1 knowledge here. And we have got more development. So really starting to get into a level 3, maybe 6 marks here. And then we want to link back to the question. As a result, or we've said that earlier on, so you could say therefore. You could say Hurricane Sandy had a mixture of social and economic impacts that could affect the country's development. You could also say it could have affected the country's quality of life because, well, we don't need these family trips. They're more for our comfort, for our enjoyment. So that would be an aspect of quality of life, and you can develop that. And again, this is AO2 skills. This is us showing our understanding through explanation. And again, we've listed the impacts, so it's further AO1. And I would say with that, you're on track for this. You would need another paragraph of this level. Okay, so good luck with that when you're doing it for your homework. Bit of a longer video than I expected, but here we go.